think we're going to get started because it's going to be a long program. Good evening. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Deputy Mayor Joel Griffith, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Tivoli Solar Energy Conference. I'd especially like to thank our guests for being willing to participate tonight, and you've traveled, and we're really grateful that you're here. Let's see, I'm going to try, I just met most of you, so I'll try and do it in order. We have Jeffrey Demansky from the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Ayez Kiani from Solar City. Carlos Nuco from Hudson Solar. Betsy Ferris-Wyman from Sundog Solar. And I haven't met you yet, sir. All right.
This is Steve from Moser from Sundog Solar.
And Steve from Sundog Solar. Nice being here. I hope this will be an edifying and enjoyable evening. I also hope it will be a comfortable one for you. So I do want to let you know the only bathroom in the building is all the way back down on the 3rd floor. And though you've all made it up here to the 3rd floor and can presumably find your way back out, the stairs are there. And if you go through that door over there, there's an elevator that can take you all the way down as well. If you could take a moment and turn off your cell phones, that would be great also. There's a printed program for tonight's event. I believe we've already gone through all 50 of them, so you might share with a neighbor. We're going to have presentations from our guests of roughly 15 minutes or less each. Then we'll take a break for some refreshments. And then we'll come back and the panelists will sit and field some questions. So do please save your questions for a Q&A period. If you'd like to jot them down on the back of your program, that might be a good idea. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of information in the next hour. The Tivoli Solar Energy Conference was just an idea 4 months ago, so it's really wonderful to actually be here in the room with you all. It was an idea that was hatched in our Village Green Committee, and if the members of the Green Committee could please rise and be recognized for just a moment. There they are. One more thank you to Murray's and Tivoli Bread and Baking for providing these refreshments for tonight. With that said, now please join me in welcoming to the podium the Green Committee's Bettina Miller.
when you do things like this, there's always going to be a problem with technology. Always. Okay. Hello? Hello? Hello. Hold it down here. Okay. Great. Okay, so, thank you. So why did I make this decision? You know, solar's been around for a while. What prompted me to make this decision? Hurricane Sandy happened, and I couldn't believe that for 3 months people were without electricity and the basic services. They were freezing in those cold early winter days, and I thought to myself, wow, I've got to get off the grid. I want to prepare because this might happen again, and I want to be off the grid, essentially. So how can I get off the grid? Well, solar, I can produce my electricity, and I'm producing a lot of it, and I'll tell you more about that later. But I did find out that you can't get off the grid right now. If Central Hudson goes down, I go down. I'm producing electricity, and I'll show you in a diagram later, but it gets sent to Central Hudson. They kind of bank it, and when I need it, they send it back to me. But if they go down, I go down. The future will be batteries, and these guys know more about this than I do. Maybe 2 years down the road, 3 years, we'll be able to store our electricity in our houses. Just in the same way that years ago, I don't know if you remember, there were mainframe computers that had to be, you know, gigantic rooms and cooled, and now all that memory can, you know, be on your smartphone. So that's the technology. So the second thing that happened to me was I read Chris Hedges' book, Days of Destruction, Days of Revolt. And we have that book in the back, along with some other books from the library. And it just shattered me. That book was really a wake-up call. And there's one chapter in there about coal mining in West Virginia. And, you know, I thought that my image of coal miners was they, you know, put on their helmets, their hard hats. They all got in a big elevator. They went down a long mine shaft to the bottom of the mine. And then 8 hours later, they came back up, and they were covered in coal, dust, and dark. And that was what my impression of coal mining was about. I also found out that Central Hudson at that time was buying their electricity from coal-produced plants in Appalachia. Those are the Appalachian Mountains, and they are, according to Google, the oldest mountains in the world. And that's where we're getting our coal from. And that's how they're mining the coal. They're taking the tops off the mountains. Just imagine if you went down to the Hudson River and you stood there and looked across the Catskills at those beautiful peaks and the silhouettes that we really love so much, and they were all gone. They were all chopped off. So it took me 6 months, and I had solar on that roof. Boom. And it was, we'll go into it in more detail, but it was very affordable, it was easy, it was what I call a slam dunk. So, let me go back. People ask me, the first question they say is, well, how are you doing? You know, how are you producing electricity? And then somebody asked me the other day, well, what kind of panels do you have, and how much kilowatts do you have? And honestly, that's information that's in my files. I really don't know what kind of panels those are. I don't really care. What I look at is what I'm generating. And this is how much electricity that I've generated from January of this year through the fall. And I superimposed what I did last fall and winter, and that's what I expect to generate. This I see on my computer. I can check the month, I can check the week, I can check the day, I can check the hour. And it's absolutely thrilling. I mean, the sunshine is just making my electricity. And one byproduct of that is that I changed all the light bulbs in my house so that I could save electricity as well. That's the bottom line. That's my electric bill from last month. That's my last electric bill. Zero. I bought zero electricity from Central Hudson. Now, I do have to pay for delivery charges, which is what this $50 is, $25 a month, and that will hopefully go away when I can store the electricity. It's pretty exciting, don't you think?
Yes.
I think so. So, thanks to Betsy from Sundog Solar, she sent me these slides. Who needs solar? This is a diagram of the population of the world as it's growing from 1960. And we all know that that's happening. The population of the world is increasing, and we are using coal and oil, which are finite. They're not infinite, but the sun is infinite. That's why we all need solar. This is a chart of historical electrical costs. Of course, we all know our electricity, our costs are going up. We don't need a graph to tell us that. And apparently last year, I didn't have to pay for any electricity, but I understand that during the winter, electricity doubled. And it will continue to rise. We all know that too. Now, I had thought that, the Southwest was the only viable place to have a solar. I thought that maybe, New York just didn't get enough sunshine, certainly in the winter. Well, it turns out, I don't have my notes here, but it turns out that New York makes as much electricity as Germany, which is the most solarized country in the world. New York. And New York State also has these great incentives, which we'll go through later. Okay, so you need a couple of things for solar. You need to have a roof with southern exposure, or you need to have some land where you can put some solar panels on a pole for southern exposure without any kind of shading. Okay, and then you need a new roof because these panels last for decades. So you don't want to put these panels on an old roof. And if you do have an older roof, put them out in the garden. They're beautiful. Some people think they look really ugly. I think they're totally beautiful. And when you think that they're generating electricity, it's a fantastic sight. Put beehives around it. They're beautiful. Here's how it works. It's very, very simple. So the sun comes down and hits the panels, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't have my notes here. The panels the sunshine makes DC, direct current, and we need to change that to AC. So we have an inverter, and I have an inverter in my basement. It just changes that to AC, and that powers my lights and my washing machine and my TV and my computers and all that. During the day, you're making more than you're using, probably. And so if you're making more than you're using, it goes back through the power lines to Central Hudson, which banks it and stores it. Then when you need it at nighttime, when you're not making electricity, it comes right back down those power lines and comes into your house. Just pretty amazing. And that's all there is to that. So, New York and the federal government, for some reason, especially New York, are just flooding us all with money to get energy efficient. That's not only solar, it's also, I found out that if you want to put in a boiler with wood chips, they give you money to do that, and help you with that. It's just incredible. So I'm sure that Jeffrey will get lots of questions about this, but federal government, New York State is got tons of money for this for some reason. 15-year property tax exemption on the added value to your home. And we talked about the net metering, which is when you send the electricity to Central Hudson, they bank it, and then send it back. So, this is my dream. This is a solar farm in the UK. 5,000 people are participating in this. They're all generating their electricity and the heat for their homes with this wind and this solar. And this is happening all around the world. Not yet, I don't think in New York, but in Massachusetts and elsewhere. So that's my brief introduction, and thank you very much, and I'm so glad you're here. And we're ready for our next speaker, who is Carlos. Good.
By the way, thank you all for coming. It's really great. I was just thinking as we were sitting there that I used to have hair halfway down my back, so it's kind of funny for me to think about it. But I actually worked for a fairly conservative engineering company, as conservative as people working in the solar field yet.
Speak into the mic, please.
Okay, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So anyway, so we're basically just doing solar electric at this point. We started out doing somewhat the similar thing to Sundog, where we were doing a little bit of everything that they'll explain to you about. We've since been sort of concentrating on just on the solar electric, but we do this as sort of a turnkey situation. So we're basically doing everything, all the paperwork, et cetera, to get you built. We're, as I say, primarily an engineering firm. If you went into our main office, it's typical for small solar companies, which is basically what we are, to have one or two engineers who are NAVSEC certified, and they're in charge of making sure that all the designs the installers are doing correct. Our main office has 10 engineers, all NAVSEC certified, that are doing various operations within our area, which is basically just the Hudson Valley, a little bit north of Albany and down to maybe Orange County. So we're really a local company. We do about half commercial and half residential installations, and we also work with nonprofits to try and make things work for them. Our basic emphasis is on trying to make these things work for you. As I would say, almost everybody in our office, I'd say, is NAVSEC certified at this point, except for our office manager who just got her MBA.
So can you tell us what that means?
A NAVSEC certification?
Yes.
It's a national certification for solar installation with a fairly rigorous test that used to be, that people would take it more than once to try and pass it. It's a very stringent engineering standard, and it used to be that, as I say, you were maybe one or two people in your organization would be NAVSEC certified. The president of our company is a certified electrical engineer who also has an MBA from Harvard, but he really wanted to focus the company on really getting engineering expertise within it to be able to tackle the challenges of installing large amounts of solar in the state. Let's see. The other thing, we're one of the older companies in the area. We've been around just about since the net metering law was established in New York State. We started as a small family company. Full disclosure, my brother-in-law who started the company actually my two brothers-in-law. And we made the decision to really focus as a local company rather than with some strategy to go nationwide. We're all from this area and really want to make sure that that as many people as want to get installed and get into a solar situation can do it. We've done over 1,000 installations at this point in the last 12 years, and, so we have a pretty good handle on all the different things that you need to keep retention on. NYSERDA has been a great partner, and they will inspect after the installation at their choosing. They will go around and inspect a certain number of installations every year. And one of the things that we were really proud of is winning their best installations for 2 years running. One of the things that we were interested in when we first started the company was actually looking at how to get to net zero. And as a concept, what that is trying to actually produce more energy on your property than you're using. And so, somewhat as an experiment, and also there was a contest going at the time, we designed and built the first commercially carbon-free, zero net energy commercial building in the Northeast. We're into, I think, our 7th year, and we've been running a surplus. It takes us about 10 months to get to net zero every year. And what that means is that we're literally producing all of our power for our electrical equipment, but also all of our heating, cooling, and hot water on premise with zero fossil fuels. And once we knew that could be done, we started trying to help other people do that, and we're happy to basically consult with people to work to get them to that zero net energy. If that's something that they want to do. It's a lot easier to do as a new construction than to try and retrofit it, although that's something that I do on my house. This is basically discussing our zero net energy building. Our total energy bill for everything is essentially the cost of being connected to the grid, which is $265 a year, and we actually at this point are getting that as a credit because we've been using energy consistently for the last 7 years. I wanted to, excuse me. Similar to what Bettina was talking about, this is an actual installation that we did, and it kind of gives you an idea of what might be possible in the future. This was done as a special program with NYSERDA, where they passed a law recently in the last 2 years for remote net metering. And what that means is that you're allowed to put an installation on 1 meter and then pass the savings and the credit to a number of other meters as long as you own them all. What that requires, of course, is that you own all the meters, which is not the case in very many situations. But in this particular one, one second. Can I have that? In that situation, or this situation, essentially it's a community in Columbia County with basically 4 special needs, and they live communally, and all of the houses have meters that are paid for by the central office. So we were able to put an installation in that is essentially delivering power for 19 meters. So it's a 200 kilowatt system that's producing about 225 megawatts a year. But that's enough to basically run this entire community. And what we're hoping is that there's legislation pending in New York to allow community net metering, where people that might not have the best house. I mean, as Tina was describing, you really need to have a house with southern exposure and that has no shading if possible. And some people just don't have that. I mean, sometimes you've got a 100-year-old maple in the front yard you just can't part with, and it's going to hit your roof and basically prevent you from getting solar. In this sort of a situation, you could actually have an agreement with a local farm that had spare acreage that you could actually have the panels installed there, and then have the credit for the energy that would be produced transferred to your meter. This is working very well in Massachusetts and a couple other states, but we haven't really gotten it through our legislature yet. So if anybody wants to write a letter to their assemblyman, it'd be great. Yes, I'll let Frank. City.
All right, thank you all for having me here. I'm Maya from Solar City. You know, events like these are very important because there tends to be a misconception about solar.
Don't want to miss a word you're saying.
I got you.
How about this? You're good? All right, let's do it. A forum like this can get out important information that lets people make an educated decision about solar, and it's nice that, you know, some other companies could come here and tell you about it, because, you know, obviously our option might not fit everybody. So, you know, whether you do and get the solar through Solar City or one of the other companies, you're making a step in the right direction, getting off of, you know, the fossil fuel right now. So why choose Solar City? I attached some of the recent installs that I've done, just so you guys have an idea of what it looks like, because that's very important for a lot of people. If I could sum up Solar City in one statement, it would be, if you have the choice to pay more for dirty power or less for clean power, which would you choose? What I mean by that is, what we believe at Solar City is everyone should be able to afford clean energy and not have to take out a loan to do that. What I mean by that is currently you don't take out a loan to pay for your electricity. So why would you do it for clean energy? Basically right now we do 1 in every 3 residential installs. So we are doing a large part of it, but obviously we're getting bigger and bigger and adding actually counties to it. So we do residential and then large scale commercial.
what we believe at Solar City is everyone should have the opportunity to reduce and also reduce their footprint, carbon footprint. That is the goal, whether you do it through Solar City or our other sister company, which is Tesla, which we actually make an electric car. We believe that solar should be available for everybody, whether you're in the Northeast, like Bettina said, or the Southwest. That's why we're currently in 15 states. Now, the key to making solar available for everybody, we tend to make it very simple. What we do is basically, you allow us to put the solar system on your roof. You're going to get a utility bill that's fixed. So unlike how you have the fluctuations right now between the winter and the summer, your bill's the same. And the best thing is, we know what the sun costs. Costs nothing. So your rate's going to be the same for the next 20 years. So that's your bill. Now, this is something I'm really proud of. It's called the Give Power Foundation. And the reason we did this is because we found out that 1.4 billion people don't have access to electricity in the world. That's about 20% of the world's population in the So what we do is for every megawatt of residential solar power that we install, we actually go to a third world country, install a solar system, hook up our batteries, and power them for the remainder of the 30 years. This is actually another program that I really like. It's called the Solar Strong. Now, the U.S. military actually decided to take advantage of what we do at Solar City, just like homeowners and businesses do. Solar Strong is actually expected to build more than $1 billion in solar projects. And basically what it does is it makes affordable solar projects available to military housing. And the nice thing is we hire people from the military to work there, so we employ them. Now, Solar City is actually a full-service solar provider, and what that means is we personally warranty everything for 20 years. So we don't just offer you a manufacturer warranty that usually doesn't cover like workmanship, which is key for a solar system. We believe that you should be able to get a full service. So after you get the system, you have the service to carry you through. That is also the reason we don't use subcontractors. Everybody that you're going to meet is going to be a Solar City W2 employee. And they get our training and they're well staffed. That is also how we protect you from basically install to well into the future, from any breakdowns, any theft, any natural disasters, which we've had here. Basically all of that is covered through us. Now this is what just gives you an outline of kind of the full service aspect that I was talking about, from basically install well into the future, your protection. This is actually what Bettina was showing you before. She did a great job at showing that. What we do is, after your system is installed, we give you software where you can track everything. So you know what your system is producing live. So you can be anywhere, and every 15 minutes it'll show you what you guys are doing. And you track it weekly, daily, monthly, yearly, for the life of the system. So you're never in the dark. The biggest thing you're going to have is the control and the certainty. You know what you're producing, you know what you're paying. This kind of just outlines what the actual plan is. So basically, like Bettina said, if your roof is good, which it can be, southern exposure is great, but it can be east and west. We can do that. Basically, we're going to come out and design a system for your home. It's going to be a low monthly bill. Ideally, we like it to be lower than what you're paying now, and then that's locked in for the next 20 years. And then it just says same thing, basically, we're gonna take care of any repairs, insurance, because we have to take care of the insurance too. There's gonna be about a $2 million policy on every home we do, because we cover the solar system and your home. This just goes more in depth. This is key. So what ends up happening is we come out to your home, James or myself, and some of the other consultants we have. We design a system that actually works for you and that meets your needs. After the design, we send out an engineer to look at your home. You know, he's going to check the structure of it. If he approves it, we do all the paperwork as far as blueprints, final design, filing for all the permits, everything like that. And then you get installed. And usually it takes us a day, because that's what we do. We just install all the time. From the install, we're going to make sure National Grid or Central Hudson comes out and does the inspection. And the nice thing is there is a monitoring and then the ongoing service. And that's the key. And the best way I analogize what we do is, how many of you in here have a cell phone? You just raise your hand.
Cell phone?
Yeah, cell phone. Now, would you rather buy the satellite, buy the infrastructure, and then be able to use your cell phone? Or would you rather just use the cell phone, know you have the reliability, you don't have to worry about fixing it, maintaining it, or anything like that? And that's kind of the best way to analogize it, is you don't have to worry about the maintenance. Okay? Thank you guys.
As we have Betsy.
Hi everyone, I'm Betsy Wyman from Sundog Solar, and I think it's great you're all here. This will give you a really good introduction to solar, and that's the first step. We do have 3 different companies here, and we're all a little different, so I'll tell you a little bit about my company. So we're Sundog Solar, and we're in Chatham, New York. Yep, that's our team. We have been in business since 2004, and we have, I think some of the slides got a little misordered, so I'll just tell you real briefly. We are located in Columbia County, and we've been in business since 2004. We sell a lot of different things. We don't just do photovoltaic. We also do some other things which I'll tell you about. But we've also done plenty of photovoltaic. We've installed hundreds of systems since 2004, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. We also do solar hot water systems. You don't just have to make electricity from the sun, you can also heat your hot water from the sun. And we do plenty of that as well. We also sell heat pump hot water installations. This takes the ambient outside air and heats your hot water with it. It's a very efficient way to heat your hot water. We also sell solar thermal hot air systems. You put these systems on the side of your house, the sun heats them up, and then you get hot air in your house, so it warms your house in the winter. But don't worry, it has a thermostat, so it's not going to get too hot. Okay, we also do closed cell spray foam insulation. So why do we do all this stuff? Well, we like to look at a house holistically. We want to look at the whole thing. Your house may be suitable for solar, but if it leaks like a sieve, maybe you should think about insulation first. So we look at the house as a whole house, and we also ask you about your lifestyle and your goals, and then we come up with a recommendation based on your responses. So we're not a cookie cutter type company. We don't just say, this is the only system we sell, and this is it. No, we're going to try to create a plan for you that is really for you and for your house and for your needs. So we are a local Columbia County business. We've been in business since 2004. We were voted the best renewable energy company in Columbia County by the Register Star in 2014. We do a lot of outreach to the community. I go to a lot of these events, and my boss, Jody Rail, is very much about giving back to the community. So I love that Solar City does a lot of international projects. We try to do a lot of local projects. A lot of times, if you come to our place in the summer, you'll see a lot of young kids running about. We have a lot of interns that come in and do different things with us, and we like to work with Questar and the other, VOTEC organizations to reach out. We also do a lot of teaching. I myself do some solar thermal teaching at Ulster County Community College and some of the other community colleges up here. And so reaching out to the community and giving back is also in our company program. We are also committed to being carbon neutral. Now, unlike Carlos, who was lucky enough to build a carbon neutral facility, we bought a 20,000 square foot factory that was a complete energy hog. And we said, we can't stand this, so let's fix it. So we put 127 kilowatts of solar. We also put solar thermal hot water systems. We spray foamed the whole thing. Let's see, what else did we do? Oh yes, energy efficient lighting, that was key. And we put in, I think we also put in upstate New York's only solar thermal air conditioner. This is pretty cool. We have 300 tubes, evacuated tubes on our roof, and a solar concentrating dish. It looks like something from like NASA. And all of this creates so much heat, and it goes into a chiller. Now, chiller technology has been around for a long time, but it usually runs on propane. And we said, you don't have to run it on propane. You can do it with solar thermal. We partnered with a firm in Georgia, and it was up and running, and Steve was doing some of the wiring on that. And that keeps us cool during the summer. I mean, who would have thought? You can keep cool by using the sun's heat. Now, it doesn't work for probably small residential houses, but what our point is that you've got to look beyond the panel. Solar panels are great, and we use them, but there's more out there, and you have to think about that. We have a full in-house support team, so in addition to having our crews, and I was telling someone, and I don't know where they are, our truck is powered by vegetable oil. We took a diesel truck and we converted it to run used vegetable oil. So we get the restaurants to give us the vegetable oil, we filter it. We also burn it in our veggie oil boiler. So we don't use propane anymore. Propane would be our alternate energy. So we really do take the idea of being carbon neutral to as much as we can. And we've also got a NABCEP certified photovoltaic installer and a NABCEP certified solar thermal installer. Someone was asking what NABCEP means. It's the North American Board of Certified Energy Professionals. And Carlos was right. These are really tough tests. Not just anyone can become a NYSERDA, a NABCEP certified installer. But I did want to point something out about NYSERDA. God bless NYSERDA. You guys are great. Because we are all overseen by NYSERDA, you are guaranteed a good system. No matter who you go with, you're going to make, because they come out and they inspect all of the work that we do. So, I mean, NYSERDA plays a very vital part in New York, and we appreciate all their hard work. Okay. Now, some of the reasons for maybe working with Sundog Solar, or as I would say, options. Life is all about options. We have system options, we have mounting options, and we have financial options. You're not tied into any one thing. We work with you in a number of ways. Now, is it true that Solar City will only do roofs? Do you only do roofs?
No, we'll do ground mount.
Oh, you do ground mounts?
Yeah.
Okay. So we do a roof mount. This is a typical roof mount. This was in, this is Don's house, and this is in Glacier? Glacier. Anyway, it's a beautiful system. You can see all the trees are in the back, so there's no shading, and there's lots of sun, and it's on the south side, which is just what you want. This is on top of our roof. This is a 25 kilowatt flat array. We do a lot of businesses, and lots of businesses have flat roofs. I know that we did a bunch of systems for CoArc in Columbia County, and we did a huge system on their Mellonville facility in Hillsdale. Mellonville. That makes sense. Okay, we also do a lot of pole mounting options. Up where we live in Chatham, there's a lot of land. And a lot of times people say, you know what, I don't want to put this on my roof, or my roof doesn't really work, or as Carlos was saying, I have that beautiful 100-year maple and I don't want to chop it down. Well, you can run a pole-mounted system, and the nice thing about these pole-mounted systems is the poles tilt. Now, if you remember that, in the summertime, the sun is really high in the sky, and so you may want to tilt the poles back to get more sun. And in the wintertime, the sun is lower in the sky, so you can tilt the poles forward. You only have to tilt them twice a year. A lot of times we have contracts with our customers, and we'll go out and do that for you. Or you can do rack-mounted systems. This is what I have in my backyard. I knew I wanted to put an addition on my house, which did have a beautiful south side, but I said I want to put an addition, and I want to put a solar thermal system on it. So I'm going to put my 4.8 kilowatt PV system in the backyard. So this is what I did. This isn't mine, but it looks just like this. And it just stays one place the whole time. It doesn't move. Now, these panels are really robust. I mean, PV panels, the technology was founded back in 1954. I think they were invented by Bell Labs. And they are used up in the space station. So, it's going to withstand any weather anomaly that you have. Will it withstand an 11-year-old with a baseball bat? Probably not. But mostly it'll stand up to the weather. These panels are really tough. And that's why almost all of them have a 25-year manufacturer's warranty. Okay, now let's talk about the financial options. We offer, you can buy your system. Now I know that Carlos was saying, the gentleman from Solar City was saying, would you rather rent your cell phone or buy your cell phone? Well, some people like to buy their things. And this allows you to buy your system outright. Now, one thing he didn't mention is that when you lease a system, you can't take advantage of the 30% federal tax credit. But when you buy your system, you can. That is yours. You can take it. Now, when you lease it, you give it to the leasing company and they use it. So you have to look, if you pay taxes and you think you could benefit from that, you want to think about buying your system. There's also a 25% state tax credit that you can take, and it also adds a lot of value to your home. Now, you don't have to buy it all at once with thousands and thousands of dollars. You can finance it. And financing still allows very low monthly payments plus ownership. And Sundog participates in the New York Green Jobs, Green New York program. And this allows you to save money from day one. Your payments are going to be lower than your current electric bill. And you also get to take advantage of the tax credits, which is really important. Oh, and by the way, if you're a company and you want to go solar, when you buy it, you get to take the depreciation. Solar is also has an accelerated depreciation schedule, and that's for not just PV, but that's also for thermal. So keep that in mind. Okay, if you're interested in solar, it's really easy to talk to someone over at Sundog and say, hey, is my place good for solar? Because thanks to Google Maps, I can sit there at my desk and pull up your property on satellite, and I can tell instantly whether your house is a good site for solar. Here's a house in Kinderhook, And I can tell that they've got a beautiful south-facing roof, but look, they also have a lot of land here. So they could do a roof mount system or a pole or a ground mount system, but I wouldn't put it here because it would have too much shading. I would put it right here or even down here. You can trench quite a bit away. So one of the things I also want to mention is that a lot of the panels that we use are American-made panels. You don't have to use foreign-made panels. And we also have monitoring systems, especially when you use microinverters. I think it's Enphase. They have a really neat user interface on the web. And I know that every month, in the beginning of the month, we get all these reports from all our clients who have these Enphase microinverter systems. And it says exactly what they've made, and it also can alert them if there's any problems, which there rarely are. And that's the one thing that's really nice about these systems, is they don't really need a lot of maintenance. There's not a lot of issues with them. They're very robust, they're very reliable. Okay, that's it for me. The decision is in your hands now, so thank you so much for your attention.
Testing. Okay, and last but not least, please welcome Jeffrey Davansky from NYSERDA.
I don't know if he's going to give you a break or not. Can you guys hear me if I don't use a microphone?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, I'll use a microphone.
Talk louder.
I'm just going to load this virus on the computer first, and I'll be right with you. So I got to break news to you first too. To keep being talked about is if I am NYSERDA. I'm actually not NYSERDA. I'll explain that shortly. Thank you so much. I'm also not very technically savvy apparently. Get that thing in the hole. Thank you. Just a minute. Didn't want to be left out on my own slides too. This is like a test. You can just verify that I have some skills. That's what it's all about. Can he navigate a computer? Okay. Contact information. I want to make sure you guys have contact information. And James Cope, are you here, James? James, you did not make it on this one. Okay. All right, James is my counterpart of mine who works on residential. So I'm Jeff Demansky. I'm with Courtney Strong Inc., and I'm a contractor to NYSERDA. And the program I represent is the Economic Development Growth Extension Program. And in a nutshell, I am paid. I'm a free resource to answer questions about a wealth of NYSERDA programs that are commercial and industrial focused. Let me ask, how many business owners do we have in the audience tonight? Business owners, please raise your hand. Okay, good, a fair bit. Do you now raise your hands again if you have a facility like a building or a commercial space where your business is based? Or is it... All right, so some of you. I figured this would be good for me to be here. And the rest of you, I'm assuming, live somewhere. So, NYSERDA. I am the contractor. I am the proxy for NYSERDA in the area, and there are a wealth of NYSERDA programs. And I'm there to answer questions about those programs, including the solar energy programs. And many times what you're going to find me doing is just pointing. Say, no, they're the experts, they know more. I'm sorry to see they didn't bring all the good numbers. I didn't pack a lot of numbers in my presentation. I brought a lot of pictures tonight. But we can talk about some of the numbers to some degree. But what is NYSERDA, for those of you who don't know? It's the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. It is a state agency. It is paid for by you. It's in several ways that the program monies are assembled, but one of the major ways, and related to these programs, is through your utility bill. There's a small portion of your utility bill called the Systems Benefit Charge, or the SBC charge. You can go home and look for it tonight. It's kind of like your entry ticket for using a lot of NYSERDA programs. So it's paying for that program that you can get your money back through these incentive programs and these very exciting finance programs. So NYSERDA is evolution. That's going to be one of the themes I'm going to talk about in my brief presentation here. NYSERDA was originally just focused on reducing petroleum use. For many years, it moved into the energy efficiency, renewable energy space, but it is an evolving space. You're going to hear, when you start paying attention to NYSERDA, if you're not doing so already, that there's a lot of talk about the move from just incentives to financing. So I'm so glad to hear you talk about financing, because that's really very, very exciting. It's very new, too. NYSERDA is not your local utility. They have a lot of great programs, too, especially for the business owners in the audience. One of the ways I gain credibility in trying to get people to use NYSERDA programs is to say, hey, sometimes you're better off going to the utility, because they do have some great programs. Homeowners can swap their refrigerators through the utilities, too. They get a rebate for the old refrigerators. NYSERDA is contractors, and I'm one of them to represent that. And these guys, as NYSERDA contractors, it's an important thing to know is that when you go through and use a NYSERDA program, you know, probably 9 times out of 10, you're going to be interfacing with a contractor to NYSERDA. It's the way that they operate efficiently. It's the way that they use those dollars more effectively. So, for example, there's probably about 300 NYSERDA employees, but to get the word out, to assist people in using the programs, which is what I do, they hire contractors who are within the site. So my territory is the Hudson Valley. My territory is 6 counties of the Hudson Valley. I have a counterpart who covers Westchester, but there are someone like me around the state. Now, it's important to know that what I want to do here, one of the things I want to do is make you feel comfortable realizing that these contractors, these great companies, are the way you access NYSERDA programs, especially for renewable. The incentive from NYSERDA comes through them and gets passed along to you if you're using a NYSERDA incentive. Here's the way the state's broken down, showing my territory in the Hudson. This is my economic development program. This is Courtney Strong Inc. Again, that idea that we are contractors as well. These are all the programs that I do represent and cover, and do I know everything about all these programs? Absolutely not. But I'm going to tell you about everything about each of these programs now for the next 2 hours. NYSERDA has a number of programs, though, so here's the pictures. There are residential programs. And I'm here to be a little bit of the eat your peas guy, and I'm so glad that you actually prefaced this as well. Thank you, because I wanted to talk not just about solar, but this is a really important message. And one of the best programs out there is NYSERDA's Home Energy Audit Program. And there's actually a program for businesses too, but how many of you had a NYSERDA Green Jobs Green Your Home Energy Assessment? Raise your hands, please. Good God, why haven't the rest of you done this? Raise your hand if you don't know about the NYSERDA Home Performance with Energy Star program. Oh, this is a good one. This is a very exciting program. I'd say nearly all of you would qualify. You have to be making 200% of the median income of the county. 200, so you have to be making more than twice of the median income to have to pay anything for a very intense, very cool analysis of your home, where you fill in a simple application. Matter of fact, it's gotten even simpler to do this program. This is exciting evolution of NYSERDA. It used to be you had to get your utility bills, summarize them for 12 months, fill in the application, mail it off, wait for the offers. They're making it easier and easier. You can go to a link now to the NYSERDA site, fill in some information, identify a contractor, and they'll work with you to get all the information you need, and then you qualify for what is a very intense home energy audit, which identifies all those cool things that you really should do. Like, Bettina, you talked about changing your light bulbs. Reduce your energy use. It's great. I mean, seal up the house. Think about it. It's not just for keeping the heat in, but it keeps the pool in the summertime, too, so you have to use less air conditioning, less electricity. So many great strategies. That's what this report can do. I will come and have a word with each one of you if you don't look into this program and use this program. So use the Home Performance with Energy Star program. And the reason I was looking for James Cope is that James is the Dutchess County representative from a company called Rupco, and I have his contact information at the end. You can contact James, and he's there to help you, to hold your hand to get through that program. There are programs for municipalities. There are programs for commercial businesses. So different types of commercial institutions, including small businesses. There's a free energy assessment for companies that have less than 10 employees. It's not as intense, it's not as cool as the home energy performance program, but it gives you a report, and both of those programs, similar to what was mentioned for solar, give you access to not only some incentives for farms as well, not only incentives, not only the grants, but what they really want to do, what's really exciting, and you'll hear about the New York Sun initiative, because now I've said it, and now you'll notice it when you hear it talked about on the radio. It's one of the governor's initiatives, and they really are pushing the installation of renewable energy in the state in many forms for all users. And the way they're doing this is they're trying to make this a no out-of-pocket experience, a cash positive experience. Here's a short slide about what the Small Commercial Energy Assessment Program is. It is a free energy assessment. You have to have well, don't worry about the details, but talk to me. I guess one of my other major themes is talk to me if you have questions. That's what I'm here for. But the exciting thing is the Home Performance with Energy Star program, the Small Commercial program, and now, very, very excitingly, this is really cool, and I hope I'm not using that too much, but it is this year, you can now finance your solar program through NYSERDA, through your utility bill. Which means that if you're thinking about selling your house, and if you qualify for what they call the on-bill recovery program, or a finance program at a low interest rate for extended period that's on your utility bill, it means that that financing stays with the property. So if you sell your house, it stays with the house. It goes to the new owner. They take over the payments, but they get the benefits too. It makes sense. So that's the idea. As a matter of fact, I broke out my atrophying Excel skills to make this chart to emphasize that point you were talking about, that they're really structuring these guidelines, these recommendations they make to be cash positive, such that the red line is above the blue line, which is the blue line is the pavement, the red line is your savings. Right from the start, when you pursue the strategies that are recommended, either by the Home Performance with Energy Star Assessment Program, a small commercial program, if you qualify and you decide to install solar or solar thermal, which is coming right down the pike. I'm so glad you talked about solar thermal, because I am one of those houses that could not put solar PV on my place, but solar thermal is great. And actually, I didn't even think about the other strategies, the technologies on the site, you know about those. But all of these can be structured to be cash positive. There's no reason not to do it. Start saving money right from the get-go, because they want this to happen. That's what they're doing. They're putting this incentive money into the financing. They're subsidizing the financing to make it make financial sense. So that's the evolution of NYSERDA. There's lots of case study information. There's me. These are some of the companies that we work for. I just love that picture of donuts. We did help Dunkin' Donuts do a lot of this work. We helped the Civic Center put new lighting into their space. You can learn about all the different opportunities. You can go and, if you want, you can sign up and get more technical information from our webinar series. And if you need to, and I hope you will, contact me for anything commercial or on the commercial side of things. Or here's for Dutchess County, there's James Cope's information. If you're in Ulster County, there's Mike Darcy. And actually James, this is very remiss, but James also covers Columbia County to the north. But there is a representative basically from NYSERDA. They pay these contractors to make this an easy decision. And so I'm here to help. So thanks.
Okay, so we've got some refreshments over here. We'll take 5 minutes, and then I hope everyone can get back in their chairs, and we're going to throw some questions at our panelists. But let's thank them all for being here. Answer the question, jump right in. I'm happy to pass this microphone back and forth, but you've all spent some time with it, and not my favorite microphone. So, Tivoli, you have some questions. Trustee Susan Israti.
Excuse me. I always feel like we ought to ask this question. We've done the panels. 25 years have passed. They started in January, they're not working. What is the disposal plan? Are there toxic materials we can be concerned about?
Should I repeat the question? Yes. Susan's asking, we've heard about the 25-year lifespan. What happens at the end of the 25 years in terms of disposal? Are there toxic chemicals or this kind of thing?
They can be recycled. Mostly glass, but you want to recycle with the solar installer.
What tends to happen with upgrades and stuff like that is the inverters need to be upgraded. A lot of the inverters, like a solar edge inverter, which is made in the USA, only lasts about 9 years. So when it does die, we need to replace it. That's what I mean. That's what Solar City does. And then at the end of the 20 years, if you don't want those panels from us, like I said, we have that program overseas where we put them on a spool and they still get 10 years out of it. So they get used. And then you can upgrade to whatever system you want at that point.
The other thing to point out is that there's a 25-year warranty on the panels. Some panels will last longer than that, but I mean, a good panel actually should probably last, over 40 years. So they've got quite a long time before they're going to need to be changed. I agree that the inverters tend to be the only thing that really breaks down. But again, a good inverter, should last over 15 years, and most of them have a mean time of failure of 25 years. And everything can be recycled.
Yeah, we typically use the Enphase microinverters. They have a 25-year warranty and have an expectancy of 40 to 50 years.
Sir?
Everything I've read to date states that the panels don't last. Locally, there's two companies that went out of business that made solar panels. One in Kingston plant, and one in Highland. So you're telling me now, this gentleman here just mentioned 40 years. I don't think you have the background to say it's going to last 40 years. I mean, so far they haven't shown that it lasted 25 years.
Actually,
And you're telling us now it's going to last 40 years?
So the question is, if the company goes under before 25 years, then what, right? That's your question?
Well,
I think that's a good question. Yeah.
even below 20 years, I mean, especially if I pay for the system, it doesn't last 20 years.
The predominant panel that we use is made by SunPower. They're, I think, in their 27th year at this point of existence. They also own quite a number of facilities with lots of different panels on it, so they're pretty good at determining what the longevity of these things are. And they're fairly confident that they're going to last, that the SunPower panels are going to last 40 years.
Not prove it today.
There haven't been any panels that are.
Because you haven't been in this business for 40 years.
Right.
Okay.
We haven't been in this business, but my boss has panels that he bought from 1970, and they're still working. There are plenty of panels, and they're up in the space stations, that were put on decades ago that are still working. I don't know about these two companies and why they made panels that didn't work, but I know that the traditional polycrystalline panels work for decades.
I think that's a valid concern. I mean, the best way I analogize it is, my roof is, when I get it, they say it's 30 years, it's good for 30 years, or 40 years, whatever it may be. But the first clause in the manufacturer warranty is based on install, how the install was done. So that's always important, how the install was done. The other factors that are important is, like you said, the technology changes, and that's why I bring up the inverters. They constantly need to be upgraded. The other thing is, what I'm excited about is Solar City just bought a plant in Buffalo. So we're going to be manufacturing panels in New York. So I mean, all those concerns you have are valid.
Well, the other concern, and I'll stop, is the use of manufacturing of the panels. They use heavy metals, which is going to leave some kind of imprint on our waste eventually. Okay, cadmium, lithium, all those things. How do we handle that problem when we got everybody using solar? We got to get rid of panels and things like that. Okay.
Well, solar hot water.
Yeah, solar hot water panels have, aluminum, copper, glass, sometimes fiberglass, and foam insulation. They don't. So, in terms of the photovoltaics, we use, most of our panels are from Solar World, and they have a good, clean facility in the U.S. There were reports about Chinese manufacturers dumping chemicals in the rivers. That's why we use the U.S.-made Solar World modules. It's one of the oldest companies, solar companies. They actually made the panels in the 70s. They were Arco back then. They've changed names over the years. Also to the point about the two businesses that went out, the two companies that went out of business making panels. The industry has gone through a very tumultuous last few years with the industry ramping up for a lot of installations in Spain and Germany, the U.S. So when all these companies were booming, we had the big financial crash of 2008 and such, and a lot of these companies with austerity, or the countries with austerity, closed their solar programs. So Spain, which was one of the biggest, stopped their program. There was a big flood of modules on the market. The prices fell to an extremely low price. I mean, they're a little bit higher now than they were at the lowest point. At that low point, a lot of the companies went out of business. A bunch of the companies like BP and Sharp, they decided, we're just gonna get out of the solar business. We have enough other stuff going on, and they just closed their solar business. So there are a number of companies that are still around, like SunPower and Solar World, and that have that are stabilized, and they have a business that can grow. They've been around long enough that they don't have huge debt and stuff like that they have to get off their books. So.
Sir.
I have a couple questions. How far from the house can you safely put the pole mounted or the rack system so that you're not having line loss? How far can you go without having to worry about that?
I think the farthest we've gone was 1,000 feet, and we like to stay within 300 feet, but the farther you go, you can actually go a fairly long distance.
We've been twice that at least.
Right, and you avoid line loss by increasing the size of your conductor. So instead of a 10 gauge wire, you have to go to a number 8 or 6 to avoid those line losses.
The other point about that is that you're dealing with fairly high voltages. What's coming into the house is a DC voltage that's going to be over 400, probably close to 500 volts in the winter anyway, and that's going to have to be downsized just to get into your house down to 325. So you can actually, at that high voltage, the resistance is pretty low, and you can actually go quite a long distance without losses.
Yeah, there are those solutions, and then also there can be some degradation based on how far it is. You just adjust the size of the system to make it worthwhile for the homeowner.
Okay, do you have to worry about snow on the panel in the winter, or does it come up by itself, or is it advisable to use a broom and get it off?
We don't recommend doing that. Most of the panels these days are black, and as long as the snow isn't too high accumulation, it'll come off really quickly as soon as the sun comes out. But you can scratch the surface of the panel if you use something really abrasive to get off the snow. So we suggest you just let it go.
Yeah, it's always not recommended, because if you look at your home and when it snows, it's usually your driveway that has the snow that's already removed, and your grass usually still has it. Because of the surface of the panels, the slope of them, and they're very sleek. But the other thing that's going to be is like when James and I come out, what we have to do is guarantee production. Especially for the Northeast, what that means is if we don't produce what we say the day we come out, we have to now write you a check for the difference because we didn't guarantee it. So we always do that conservative because no company wants to write out checks. So you tend to produce 10 to 15% higher.
And that's NYSERDA. That's, by the way, that's
Just
NYSERDA
take one more from
basically
you,
is what.
sir, and then I'll go back there.
Okay, and first of all, how much sun in the Northeast where we live do you need per day to make it worthwhile? And then, does it pay to put enough solar in to use a heat pump?
Well, those are two different questions, but basically, in terms of solar or electricity, we get on average 4.5 hour peak sun hours a day in the Northeast, And a peak sun hour is an engineering term that refers to radiation strong enough to create a kilowatt per square meter. And that Germany that was mentioned before, the best place for solar in Germany gets 25% less solar radiation than New York State. So we're doing fine as far as that.
Jeff, and then, oh, go ahead, you're up, then we'll go back to Mike.
So, I mean, I think there's a couple of questions, maybe a little bit more technical. You have two different types of inverters. You got the micro inverters, and you'll have the single consolidated string inverters that everything goes into. And I'd like some discussion about the advantages of one over the other. So that would be an interesting topic, because part of the advantages that I think are pretty clear in terms of monitoring the system. You have a single inverter. You may not know what string is acting up and what panels acting up. The other area is the infrastructure to support the panels. You got a 25-year warranty on the panels and potentially on the microinverters. But I have hole mount in the yard, and I have rust after 9 years, and I don't know how that's covered under warranty in any of these scenarios. And so I'd like to understand, what the warranty covers, because you have issues with infrastructure. You have problems with mice and rodents getting underneath panels, eating insulation, causing shorts. You have all kinds of other environmental issues that have to be contended with in either scenarios, right? So on the question of being able to clear snow in the wintertime, I take a broom, it's a push broom, and I'm very careful not to scratch it and make sure that it's always clean so there's no irritation, any scratching of the surface. But that's the advantage of pole mount over roof mount, right? So you have this ability to go around for 20 minutes looking silly with a long push broom, right? Pulling the panels up. So some of the discussion that is different from the typical questions that people don't realize until they get involved with this have to be addressed and should be discussed.
I can tell you, as far as our company is concerned, the racking that we use has at this point a 20-year parts and workmanship warranty. As far as rodents goes, that actually was a problem that we ran into early on, and we now, as a matter of course, put in squirrel guard on all of our systems.
Anything else from the panel before I take?
I think the question before that was about the inverters, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a couple things that end up happening. I mean, you have the system, so you kind of realize a little bit more. The microinverters are a good system. We tend to use more of the solar edge, which is 1 unit. The reason being is because of maintenance concerns, because the inverters are the things that I mentioned that need upkeep, that do have a lifespan that isn't necessarily 20 years, because they can't go. I mean, let's say they're 20 years, but they can't go year 9. So that's why we tend to use 1 inverter. And then the nice thing about the solar edge is it's made in the USA, and it actually produces on a cloudy day also. And so it produces on a cloudy day and a snowy day, and the efficiency is really good. And the last thing I would say is the maintenance on that is so much easier, because let's say you had 20 panels, that's 20 microinverters, and you can just imagine what the maintenance would be with that. As far as your system and maintenance on it, that would all be through us, just like with the home. We cover the home and the panels, because that's what ends up happening. It is not necessarily, let's say you buy a Mercedes, it's not really the cost of the Mercedes, is the upkeep of it whenever you have to go to the dealer and get work done on it.
Yep.
The main difference between a microinverter and a string inverter is you don't have one single point of failure. If you have one module that goes bad, it'll shut the whole string down. Or you just one module that's shaded, it'll decrease the production of the entire string. Even if it's producing very well, each module is going to have a slight variation in production when it's new and as it ages. They're going to produce, and anything on the string is going to produce as good as the lowest producing module on that string. So with a microinverter, each module is independent. Each module can add power as low as 1 watt. So even cloudy days, you're still producing. Some string inverters won't even turn on until it gets up a few hours in the day. Especially if you have a little shade from trees over here, you have to wait for the whole string to be in the sun. In terms of maintenance, a string inverter, yes, you have maintenance. Oftentimes they have fans, they have heat dissipators. You have to keep them clean, keep them cool. And that may require yearly or every couple of years dusting them, just like a computer and tower or something like that. The microinverters are kind of like a tablet. There's nothing in there to clean. You have the inverters underneath the modules. There's no maintenance on them. You don't have to clean them every year. They're underneath the modules, and because of that, you don't need a space in your basement, or if you don't have a basement, in a room where it's going to sit there and hum all day. So they're quiet. And they do have a 25-year warranty. If we have to come out and replace one, even after our 10-year warranty, so we offer a full 10-year warranty on the whole system, even in year 24, we come out and replace it, Enphase will actually pay us for the labor, so you don't have to pay for labor for us to replace it.
Okay, Jeff, now I'll come over to you, sir. He's been waiting quite a while back there.
I guess this may be more for Jeff at this point. If we in Tivoli wanted to put up a neighborhood array, when do you see that as something that's coming down the pike that we could do that? And what would be the process? And would we each be contributing some dollars, in essence, buying our respective shares, or as many shares as we wanted to purchase into it? Can you give us a little bit of idea, rather than each of us putting our own system on our own homes, whether they be appropriate or not, and trying to get as much insulation as we can, and instead find an ideal spot that's a community-based spot?
No. It is a great concept, and there is a lot of interest and there is activity in trying to develop that legislation, but it's not in place yet. But there is a lot of pressure, and writing a letter to get the legislation passed is a really good step to get there. There's no doubt about it. As is, there's other things that you could support, include other finance strategies. So I'm sorry to not be able to give you more detail on that, but stay tuned and press for it, because it's something I personally would like to do as well, having a house that was only suitable for solar thermal at this point in time.
We're probably 2 years at this point,
Well,
realistically.
So third row, and then we'll go up to you, sir.
Under the buy option, do you also offer a maintenance contract, or is that included in the base price?
Yes, I mean, it is included in that. NYSERDA requires, for instance, that we maintain everything for at least 5 years. We do it for 10, as you guys do. The panel manufacturers, the rack manufacturers, the inverter manufacturers all have the ability to do long-term maintenance warranties as well. A lot of them are moving now to 20-year warranties.
Yes, whether you do the option that I spoke about or whether you buy them from us, you still get the same maintenance no matter what.
Now, if you're asking about tilting poles and stuff like that, we offer it both ways. So you can do a per year maintenance contract or built-in. pole tilts. Actually, I'd like to get back to the question over here about your heat pumps. Yes, you can put a system in large enough to accommodate a heat pump in a house. It all depends on the house. I've seen some homeowners that have let's say a geothermal heat pump, and it's a well-insulated house, well-designed heat pump system. They only needed a 5 kilowatt system to run their whole house. And I've seen the extreme where they needed a 30 kilowatt system to heat their house. Electric heat's even worse. You know, it's much more power. It's twice the power than a heat pump. One of the things that we look at when we look at a whole house is you may want to take out those window air conditioner units, put in like a mini split heat pump system where heat and cool, take off some of the load of your fossil fuel use, that's definitely possible. We also do the heat pump hot water heaters where it'll air condition your house while it's heating your hot water and dehumidifying. It's a win-win-win.
Thank you.
Someone in the front.
Yeah, do you have anybody have any experience on the resale value, whether it increases with solar electric installation?
Well, according to the Journal of Real Estate Appraisal, they say for every dollar that you're saving in renewable energy, it adds $20 of value to the house. But that varies from region to region. I do know that if you own your system, it tends to be easier to sell the house than if you lease your system. Because if you lease your system, then that lease has to be transferred to the new owner. It's just another level that they have to go through.
I can just say anecdotally, my brother-in-law just sold his house a couple of years ago. It was a solar house, and he sold it in the middle of the downturn as far as being a bad real estate market in the area, and he sold it in 3 weeks, and for $1.2 million. It was the first over $1 million home sold in Statsburg in the last decade. So we've run into a number of customers who have sold their houses, and almost all of them have reported back to us that it was much easier to sell the house, and they were able to get the price that they wanted. So I mean that's just anecdotal, but again the appraisal study that was done back in '98, but there was a recent study actually done by a guy who plays drums in my band, but who actually works for Berkeley Labs and did a 2-year study again out in California, but they corroborated the initial appraisal institute, and the idea is that someone could afford to pay a larger sum for your house without changing their budget if they didn't have to pay a utility bill. And that calculation of $1 or $20 for every dollar that they save means that they could actually afford to pay that much more for their house.
Yeah, Solar City did a study with Yale in the 15 states we're in, and an average, I mean, like they said, it depends on the region, but the average was about, a 20% premium on your home. And, either way, we actually, let's say you did decide to sell your home, we actually help you with the MLS listing, help with the transfer, and the new homeowner doesn't have to worry about coming out of money out of pocket. They would get the same utility bill, so let's say you decided to sell your home in 5 years. You could show them, because if they're interested, they're going to ask you for your utility bills and your taxes. You can show them the last 5 years of electric bill being the same. So you can decide at that point if that's a selling point for your home, and then it just goes to the new homeowner. And like I said, you need help with the transfer and everything.
Yes.
I have a question. You've all done commercial and you've done residential installs. Have you done any condos, multifamily?
The only one I can think of.
Question again?
I was asking if they have ever done an install for the solar panels on condominiums. I live over in Tivoli, so my question was if anyone has done an install at the condominium level.
Yeah, project I referenced earlier that was basically community set up is the same concept. I mean, the problem is that you either have to split up the system into each meter, or you have to, the meters have to be owned in common by a single entity. So if you had a neighborhood situation where your condo set up a situation where all of the bills for all of the meters were paid by one entity, then theoretically you could do it. And that we were successful in getting that done for the community. So there's no reason why it couldn't be done that way, but that's the only way you can do it right now. Because otherwise, it's everybody has their own bills.
Right now we all have our own meters. So much, I understand this, if we decided to have one meter that was being paid by the association, it would be a possibility.
But they'd also have to pay your utility bills. Yeah. In other words, everybody's utility bill would have to be paid by one entity. Okay. So if you all agree to do that, then you could set up a single array for the entire building, and all of the savings would accrue to each one of the meters.
Would we still be eligible for the federal and state tax deductions?
You mean the tax credits?
The tax credits,
Yeah.
yes.
You know, I think that the reason why a lot of these condos are not done is because it gets very tricky. You know, who does own the tax credits? What were you going to say about it?
Oh, I was going to say it depends on the condo and how it's set up. I mean, if you have 2 or 3 apartments in one building and you each have your own roof, then it's simple.
Right now, we have 6 pads.
Right.
Each pad is 16 units.
Okay. So it would have to. Who owns the roof? Is that?
That's common property. So
That's
it's
common
not-
property.
It's the association.
Because we have looked into it, I mean, we're looking into it in Florida, there is a lot of money roofs there. The best example I can do that I've personally done is townhomes. It requires a little bit more paperwork for me, because you have to determine the wall, and then with the HOA, you have to go through a board and everything like that. Those I've been able to do. Condominiums, like I said, is more for Florida. The other thing that I wanted to address is tax credits. When you buy the system, yes, you get a federal tax credit and a state tax credit. But you obviously have to come up with initial investment. With the other options that I was talking about where there isn't money out of pocket, you actually still get to keep the state tax credit. Because we actually don't use subcontractors. So you get to, even with no investment, keep the New York State tax credit. So I just wanted to address that also.
Proper residence.
Can you talk about the future, specifically about the battery option? Like how incentives was mentioned, and when that happens here, technically you're off the grid and the solar panels won't do anything because we buy it ourselves. Is that gonna come anytime soon?
Well,
Go for it.
you guys do that as well, right? So, basically, you can do batteries now. The technology is there. If you have the room for $10,000, you could put in some batteries. You can put in another inverter that'll go both directions on top of your existing system. So, and depending, it's a matter of just wiring it in, and it has to fit the output. But in terms of the future is getting into batteries that are smaller, like lithium batteries. Basically, a cost-effective lithium-style battery. Something that doesn't take up a lot of space. Something that has repeated discharges. Right now, lead-acid batteries, or even sealed batteries like AGM batteries or gel batteries, they just don't have the lifespan to make it worthwhile. If you're losing power like once a week, then yes, they're great. It may be a good idea. But if you're looking at losing power once a year, once every couple of years, a generator is probably definitely a more cost-effective
I mean,
And it's a more environmentally friendly option too. Batteries have some disposal issues associated with them.
I mean, the other thing to really make it, put some reality to it, is that if you're looking to completely cover your usage without any lifestyle diminishment, you would need a lot more than just $10,000 for the batteries.
Right.
You know, that you'd use an incredible amount of batteries just to cover your yearly usage. That's why net metering makes so much sense right now, is because the concept of net metering is that during the summer you produce twice as much energy as you're going to need and then you get that back in the winter when you may only get 1 or 2 hours of sun. So that's currently the only thing that makes sense. What we're probably looking for is another technology that can store that amount of energy, which is a large amount of energy, economically, that doesn't have the breakdown. I mean, the technology that I saw that looked kind of promising, but nobody's really done much with, is a version of hydrogen cell where you're actually breaking down water using solar to store hydrogen and then running a generator using hydrogen cell. And that's, that could happen in 5 years if there was anything behind it. But right now, nobody seems to be pushing it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, you have batteries available. The biggest thing for us is going to be the safety and reliability of it. We actually built, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Tesla, we actually build all electric cars. So we actually are in the process of having 2 more gigaplants built, one in Texas, one in Arizona. And we are manufacturing lithium-ion batteries. They're much safer, much more reliable. We do that more out west. Right now in New York, there's obviously red tape that you have to go through. So it's something that is available. It's just getting through the legislation and getting it here. And they're much more safer, much more reliable. And initially it will be like a generator-sized lithium-ion battery that you guys will just have added onto your system for those days when you don't have electricity.
Chris?
Yeah, I have a different situation. It's similar to the condos. I live next door in an apartment house. And I live there too. There are 2 other meters besides mine. And so I really am not interested in paying the student's electric bill. I'm interested in paying my bill for my apartment. Because the sump pumps on it, the porch lights, I have all those things.
Right.
And when I spoke to somebody, this thing came through Facebook, and I filled out the survey. 10 minutes later, some lady called me and said they represented 4 companies and something. But when she heard I had an apartment house, and that I didn't want to put it all on 1 meter and pay everybody's electric bill, they weren't interested. She said it was too complicated. It couldn't be done. Now, is that the case?
Do you own the roof?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I own the building, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. So you can easily put a system on your roof. It's different when some other entity owns the roof and you're all living inside that shell. When you own the roof, actually in my house, I have a 2-family house. It's all on the roof. It's just supplying my meter.
It's just you.
Right.
Yeah.
And
let me address this question because I do this for a living. You can do sub-metering, right? So you can use a single meter, generate your electricity, get your rebate, and you can charge each of the individuals by taking those branch circuits and putting them on a meter. Sub-metering is pretty common in malls and so on. So it's really trying to divide up your utilization by your tenants so that they just pay whatever they're
Well, there's a large apartment upstairs, and I don't think
Right.
it's
I mean,
$700 bill, electric bill, because it's electric heat.
Right, so what they consume, as long as you can identify that circuit, you can put a meter on that circuit, a sub-meter on that circuit. I can even tell you where you can get those meters, but
I'm a bit interested in paying my electric.
Is there one more question out there?
Thank you for,
stuff will do that too. They can put a system on the roof, and it'll go to one meter that's their common area. But that might be enough to supply a couple other common areas and other apartments that they own. But yeah, you can definitely have it supply yours. You can also, like I said, sub-meter it to other people. If you have several meters on your property, you have your barn has one, you have two in your house. If you can get by with only 1 meter, each meter you're eliminating saves you, and I think here, Central Hudson, you're $24 a month. So that really pays for itself by having,
It would just
them all
be
connected.
too complicated to guesstimate how much kids use with electric. And they would use more too, because I pay for the water.
Right.
And if they had to pay for the water, I know they wouldn't use as much.
Yeah, no, you can just do your meter.
Yeah.
So I actually have a question. How does this all look in the eyes of Central Hudson? So I see these Central Hudson bills of 0, and you think more and more people are going solar with all those 0 bills. How does this sit with our big utility in the area? I'm just curious.
Well, I think a lot of utilities have taken the tact of if we can't beat them, join them. And they're starting to really embrace solar and offer their own programs to that extent. I know that Con Ed is very forward thinking out in Long Island because of their high electric rates. So I can't say that they've exactly embraced us in the beginning, but I think they're getting more used to the idea that we're here and more people want solar, and it is a reality, and it's going to continue.
One part of the technical part is with electricity generation percolated everywhere, it puts a little less strain on the system as a whole. So basically a microgeneration, so that you don't have systemic failures of too much power being drawn at one time, as opposed to centralized power generation. So it does ease the grid a little bit, especially with aged infrastructure. And also, they're required to have a certain percentage of renewable sourced energy. So this actually counts as that. So it allows them to not have to scramble and raise their percentages and stuff.
The other thing is that we, in the state, we produce 60% of the energy that we need in the state. So the rest is coming from the Northwest or from Canada. And what's happened in New York over the last 20 years is that the summer has now become the time when most people use energy, because we went from like 20% of the population having central air conditioning to over 85%, I think, at this point. So right when the utilities need the most amount of energy is when solar is producing in excess. So it's actually a good thing for the utilities. They're not seeing it exactly that way. Central Hudson keeps on trying to say, well, we'll do it, but only up to this limit, and they've been increasing the limit every couple of years.
And nothing's static too. It's going back to that theme I was talking about, that evolution. If you pay attention to what's happening with the Public Service Commission, the PSC, there's something going on right now called Reforming the Energy Vision. It's a proceedings that the PSC has in place, and all the utilities just had to submit their plans for conforming or how to basically evolve, because they recognize that this is the way things are going. But let me put this little push in there too, because this is kind of a very sweet and wonderful time to do these strategies, because there are still incentives. And the incentives have dropped per watt in the time that, in the last couple of years, they have reduced. They're still there. They may not always be there. So here you go. But get it while you can. Coupled with the financing opportunities out there, if you're going to purchase, it is a phenomenal time. And there's a lot of other efforts out there. So if you're from another municipality outside, there's a lot of support for streamlining permitting. So there are grants to help your municipality streamline permitting, which is a very big deal, about reducing some of the soft costs about doing this. And you're going to hear more about solarized campaigns happening. Kingston is working towards one, and it's happening more and more. Westchester has a large solarized campaigns going on, which basically is collective purchasing. It's not for one system, but it's a way for a number of people to get cost advantages in purchasing solar.
I'd like to continue one of the things that you pointed out is that the NYSERDA rebate, right now it's $1 a watt. Not too long ago, it was double that. Right now, they have what's called a megawatt block program. So after so many megawatts installed, the incentive will automatically drop down. So now we actually have a kind of a forecast of how the incentives will drop. Before it was kind of up in the air, and one time they just dropped it one day and said, if you didn't get your system, your application in, you're at the new rate. So they're forecasting that by the end of the year, we might be down to 90 cents or 80 cents a watt. By the end of next year, we might be down to 50 cents a watt. And then the year after, gone. So this is a kind of a sweet spot of when to get the system in, because the system prices are so low because the module prices are low. And the industry has been working very, very well to cut soft costs, all the extra stuff other than the modules and the inverters, and labor and healthcare and everything else is just going to go up. So, and insurance and everything else. So, the system prices are soon going to probably rise again, and incentives are going to go down. The federal tax credit right now is 30%. In the year 2017, dropping to 10% unless things change.
And so is the early bird that gets the worm. Simple. In the back?
Hi, so there is a limit to how much juice you can produce? Senator Hudson only buys so much, or
No,
do they have a system that's bigger than what you really actually need?
the NYSERDA has a 110% limit, so you're not supposed to design a system that's going to produce more than 110%.
So it can go up to 110%.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that used to be anyway enough to cover your connection fee.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to close the conference formally. We want to thank our guests for coming. Please come back to Tivoli soon. We really appreciate you being here tonight.